So we're joined from the beautiful North Shore of Covington, Louisiana, by my man Kevin Rainey, Area Vice President of NAPA Auto Parts there on the North Shore. We thank you so much for having us for the third time this year. This is our personal finance class, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, including my good friend Coach Robin Mercer over at my alma mater, Madison Central High School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So we thank you for joining us because obviously this class we're going to talk about how to manage your money and how to be successful at that. But before you ever have the money, you got to have the job, and that's where you come into play. So I'll put your resume up against most people. Just to give us a little background, originally from New Orleans, spent years in retail sales, moved into corporate training on the public and private sector, and now they're with Napa Know-How, Napa Auto Parts.
Yes, yeah, it's been quite a journey to be quite honest with you, and one that if I would have been one of your students sitting in that class, I would have never guessed I would have gone on. But one of the things I definitely did was I always kept myself open to taking on a new challenge, and of course, anything that I felt was a resume builder is always something that I always took until I did eventually find my passion, which I'm doing part of, which is on the human resources side now. I don't know. I work for NAPA, but I don't know a doggone thing about auto parts. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson to learn is just because it's an auto parts store, I don't know anything about it, but there's always so many other things to kind of that you can do, right? It's a company. It is a company. It's a Fortune 200 company, and they got to have everybody in every position out there.
But you could also, if it came down to it, you could talk a customer into buying something. So we'll talk about that in a minute as well. Now, right now in our class, we are working on cover letters. We're eventually going to get to resumes and to interviews. In your career, you have literally interviewed thousands of people. You have seen
Easy.
thousands upon thousands of cover letters, resumes, interviews, and what I try to explain to these kids is that something wrong on a cover letter, something wrong on a resume, something wrong in an interview can cost you not to have a job. And when you, first of all, you want to see that stuff and you are going to read it. So, talk
Yes.
about the importance of having that cover letter and that resume before they ever walk into the door.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the first introduction. That is going to be what actually opens the door and gets you to sit in that chair that's sitting over to my left right here is to come in and sit down. And honestly, the cover letter, the resume is important. So I don't want anything I'm about to say to sound like it's not important. But if you catch my eye, you're going to catch it in a cover letter. And a cover letter should be just in my opinion, it should be a very simple introduction of you as a human being and what is your skill set? What do you bring to the table? Because I want that real short, because that is going to be what makes me then, if it's on a computer, scroll down to the next page, or if it's actually printed in front of me. And I work from both perspectives because I'm an old person, so I like paper sometimes. But that's what's going to make me turn that cover letter over and actually start diving into your resume. And little things, and look, misspelled words are going to throw you off. I'm not going to say it's an impossible hurdle to overcome, but it's certainly going to be a more difficult. If I've got 30 cover letters and resumes sitting on my desk or in my inbox, and I see one with a bunch of misspelled words, well, then that's going to me, that speaks to your attention to detail. And so if I've got a position that you really need to pay attention to detail, and trust me, in this particular world, those numbers on those boxes are small, and you've got to be able to know exactly what you're getting for each person. So that grammar mistakes, and look, I'm the king of misspelled words, but in today's day and age, there's really no reason for it when you think about all the spell check and grammar checks out there. Don't get so fast at wanting to submit it that you forget to go back and check for the little red lines. My favorite color. Not really. Purple is. Go Tigers.
Big time. Now, and also, it's important to show that you can write. You're going to have to send company emails. Everybody's going to have to understand what you're talking about. And like you said, just because you work at an auto parts place doesn't mean everybody there's an auto parts person. You've got to be
Right.
able to communicate with people in writing to do business. You can't talk to somebody like they're your friends. You have to be able to work with everybody within the business.
Yeah, it's very true. I'll give you a quick example. I was over in Alabama looking at some stores, and I was riding with somebody, and they had to do a call similar. Not it was more business than this. This is way more fun for me than a business call on a Zoom meeting. But But she had to take the call. And when the call was over, I felt frustrated. I wasn't even on it, but I was driving the car. So obviously I could hear everything. And it is because they were like, oh, there were only three people, and the person to my right and sitting in a passenger seat was one of them. But it's a lack of being able to communicate. And one of the hurdles that you guys, as a generation coming up, you not only have to know how to communicate face to face, person to person, eye to eye, which is very important, but also communicating on one of these and not talking over somebody and recognizing that, you know what, while Kevin's talking, I better not be talking because I can't, he won't be able to hear me. I won't hear him. So it's just an extra line of communication. But never ever discount the in-person conversation, because I'm not going to hire somebody over this type of a call. I might, if you live in Chicago and I'm interviewing you for a job in New Orleans, we might start here, but I'm going to fly you in and we're going to sit face to face and we're going to look each other. We're going to look at body language. I'm going to look at how confident you feel in yourself before I ever offer you a job of any magnitude.
Yeah, and that's a great segue because you talked about you want to see they can write, but when we get done here in a little while, they're going to work on their presentations that they're going to give Thursday. And it is so important to master those speaking skills
Yeah.
because, places like NAPA, you can teach somebody the business, but you can't teach somebody how to sell and market and communicate. Because if you're ever facing customers of any type, you've got to be confident, you've got to speak clearly, being able to walk into a room and introduce yourself, being able to show that you're professional. And, you told me something that I still think is hilarious. When somebody shows up for an interview, you're watching the security camera to see how they're driving into the parking lot. And I don't think people realize that. So talk about, you see the way they can write, you're going to call them in. What are you then looking for once they're in front of you?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'm looking is I'm making sure you're not speeding through my parking lot trying to run somebody over, because I've sent people home because of the way they have driven into the parking lot. Matter of fact, I had a high school intern at the IT company I worked for a little while. I told him to go on back to the school and drive back here, and I want to see him drive in a parking lot completely different. Yeah, when you go on a job interview, you need to look at it as soon as you get in your car to get to that place. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a Napa Auto Parts, Burger King, Taco Bell, a grocery store. I don't care what it is. You need to look at it as you're now on a stage, and every single thing you do is being looked at. I'm watching one. You're right. I am watching every time. How do you pull into my parking lot? I'm watching that. But I'm watching, how do you walk up to the door? How do you shake hands? What is your body language? Do you look like you want to be there? It amazes me the number of interviews I will do in person with people that it looks like I'm completely inconveniencing them. And I'm gonna be honest with you, that's not ever. I'll never hire you in that aspect. If you come in with that type of attitude, I'm just not gonna. I don't care how much experience you have, because to your point, Greg, I can't teach you the home skills, right? These are the things your mom and daddy and aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas and brothers and sisters are supposed to be teaching you, of how to be a good human being and how to be a productive member of society. I can't teach you that. And truth be told, I don't have the time to do that. So it is important to me, though, that you are able to walk in that room, hold a conversation, proper body language. You can look me in the eyes. That's the art of conversation, is almost a dead art. And I'll tell you, I have a daughter that is in college at Southeastern in Hammond. She waits tables 3 days a week. She's not asked me for a penny in the last 2 years. And it's only because she knows how to talk to people. She knows how to relate. She knows how to joke around with them. So it's a skill set that if you guys can have, you will be the next CEOs, COOs of this world, because not many people in your age group know how to do that. Obviously, you can tell that's a soapbox of mine. I can talk for an hour and a half.
Oh man, tell me about it. And it's something I have so much talent and intellect in this room right now. It's just stupid. Like, and I told you, I'll say it off. I said it off camera. I'll say it on camera. This is probably the most gifted class you've spoken to, and all the times you've done this. But that intellect, that GPA, only gets you so far. It's going to
Yeah.
get you looked at, but when you walk in the door, you've got to show that you're the best. And being able to look somebody in the eye, being able to show that you can sell to a customer. Because I have a couple here that want to be entrepreneurs. Well, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to be able to talk, you got to be able to sell. And
Yeah.
then, and like at NAPA, you said yourself, you're not an auto parts expert, but you can get in there and still talk to a customer and say, look, here's what we offer, here's what it's going to cost you, and here's why it's a great investment.
Yeah, the reality is if you know how to sell and the only way you're ever going to know how to sell is to be able to communicate. The only way you can do that, or as a part of that, is you got to build a trust. And and I'll tell you right now, I would encourage every one of you guys to take a job selling something. I don't even care what it is, because if you are going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to go out and you're looking to open up your own business, man, I think that's one of the greatest things in the world for anybody to do. But the reality is every single minute of every single day you are selling. The first thing you got to sell is your vision. The next thing you got to sell is your ideas. Then you got to sell yourself, because somebody's going to have to believe that you can actually achieve what you want to believe, or what you're saying you're going to achieve. Because nobody's going to invest in somebody they don't trust. They're not going to invest in somebody they can't talk to or aren't confident and can't communicate. I'm not going to hand you $50,000 to start a business if you can't look me in the eyes and have a conversation with me and sell your ideas. And then when you do that, now you're going to have to sell to employees to come in and get them to come in and help you with what you're trying to accomplish. And then after all that selling, then you're going to actually sell to your customers. So yeah, you got to be able to communicate, and you got to know how to sell. And like I said, I don't care what you're selling. I can go out there and sell a golf ball to somebody. I could sell a wedding gown. The end of the day, because I know how to communicate, because I know how to build trust, because I know how to make people laugh and feel comfortable, all of those things, you're right. I'll go out there and sell a battery to somebody that's looking for oil. It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. Now, and so I haven't gotten to this in class yet, but I know because you're an interview person, I think this is important. You know, as somebody that used to interview people as well, I always say when you go into an interview, you're probably going to have the same types of questions from everybody, so you can rehearse that. But
Yeah,
if somebody ever asks you in an interview, do you have any questions for us? The answer never, 0% of the time, is no.
that
You
is
can have,
correct.
I've been in several interviews in my life, and honestly, I've had the same 3 or 4 questions for all of them. We're not talking about rocket science here, but you
Yeah,
can do just 5 minutes of research and be able to ask them about something they're doing. I always say, make them nervous, make them on the defensive, show that you can take initiative. So when you get done, somebody could have given you great answers. When you get done and you say, "Do you have any questions?" and they say no, it is amazing the red flag that is.
it absolutely does. I always say it this way: when I go on a job interview and when I'm interviewing somebody, they better expect from me that I'm interviewing them, because I think that's something important that we sometimes lose sight of. And look, these where you guys are at your ages, and look, let's be honest. Most of you are probably not going to go to work somewhere. You didn't work over the summer. You're not going to work during the school year, and you're going to retire from that place, right? That's the reality of it. So you're getting some skills right now. But
Yeah.
when you go on those interviews, and I don't care what they are, you need to be interviewing them as well. And that is a great opportunity. You tell me no, that tells me you don't really care. Because number one, I didn't ask you all the questions that you need information on to make a decision as whether or not this works for you. And look, some basic ones. Hey, Kevin, what is your favorite thing that you do throughout the course of the day? What is your favorite thing about working for this company? It's and look, and don't be afraid to also go, well, what are your least favorite things? Because it might be, and I hate that every Saturday morning I got to walk through that door over there at 4:30 in the morning. Well, look, if I'm not a morning person, then I'm already knowing I don't want to work there because I'm going to fail miserably. I'm not going to meet their expectations. So I think that's just a big piece of the success puzzle, and it shows you care. Look up something about the company. All of us have Google, right? AI's out there. Shoot, you could probably go to Chat GPT and go, what are some great interview questions for me to ask the interviewer and this for this company? And Chat GPT will give you probably 5 or 6 great questions.
Yeah, and it shows that one I always asked was what types of room for advancement is there? That shows you want to move up
Absolutely.
within the company. And
Yes.
then and I forgot about this too, and this is one I tell a lot. And if I wouldn't have seen it, I wouldn't have believed it. Because when I was at LSU, we had a woman come in for an interview, and she comes in, she goes, "Hi, I'm here for the interview." I said, "Oh man, that's great." And we had a few positions open, and I said, "Well, who's your interview with?" She looked me right in the face and goes, "I forgot. Let me go look."
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, and I was like, "How hard is it to look? Bring the. You could even brought the sheet in with you if you're a forgetful person. You're going to be nervous. Bring the sheet in and say, "Yeah, I'm supposed." And she was had an interview with my friend Belinda Lee, who's now retired. But she said she could have brought in and said, "Yeah, my interview was with Belinda Lee at the." That'd have been fine. But the fact that she
Absolutely.
didn't even think enough to say, "Let me make sure I know who to ask for," that's a That's another big red flag.
Yeah, it is. And look, the truth is too, you should walk in with some kind of a notebook to be honest with you, because you should have your questions that you have for them written down. And look, some of the questions that you might write down in terms of information that you want about the company, that may come out in the interview itself. And that's okay. You could just kind of scratch through that or write the answer down. But it does give you a great place to write the cheat sheet. You know, my interview is with Belinda. It's for 2 o'clock this afternoon. I'm a little bit early. I'll go sit over here and wait.
Yeah, and it was just something simple. And no, she did not get the position. Not surprisingly. Now
Right.
something that is another big soapbox of yours, and I think is something that is lost on this generation a lot, is good customer service skills. Because it is amazing how fast you can move up within a company with good customer service skills. Whether you're a therapist, whether you're an attorney, whether you're a teacher, at the end of the day, you've got to have those skills to be able to resolve conflicts. Now, obviously, some jobs are more than others. Um,
Mhm.
but when you started your career as a retail manager, you said you were one of the busiest stores in the state of Louisiana at Radiophone there, down there in Chalmette, and you said my customer service was okay, but a lot of things could have been better, and a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
bad things wouldn't have happened if I'd have had better customer service skills. And now you see, it just when you're the employee, and you have to remember most of the time when somebody's upset, they're not upset with you, they're upset with the situation. Um,
absolutely.
Very rarely are they really upset with you personally. And I've even had people upset with me say, "Look, I'm sorry, I'm upset. I'm not mad at you. I'm just mad at the situation." Well, most of the time, and you just let them talk for a second, we can
Yeah,
usually come to a calm agreement. And even if that agreement is to disagree on the outcome, that's fine.
yeah.
But the customer service aspect, can really, once you get the job, can be so vital to your success and especially as an entrepreneur. If you don't have good customer service as an entrepreneur, you're not going to make it.
Now,
But
if you don't have good customer service as an entrepreneur, you may as well go into like data processing where you can just sit in a cubicle. And yeah, as an entrepreneur, you better know everything, right? And the number one thing is to be good to people and have great customer service. Yes.
yeah,
But
and
no,
and and
to your point, the greatest advice I ever got was from a manager who honestly I didn't have a whole lot of respect for coming up, but I've got to say you can learn something from every single person you work with, right? But you can sometimes learn what are great things to do. You can learn things not to do. Like, okay, well, when this guy treated people like this, it made me feel terrible. But I worked for Radiophone, and on the top left of our shirt was the word Radiophone. And the advice, the guy's name was Andrew, and Andrew said to me after I was dealing with an angry customer very early on in my career, and he's like, "Dude, why are you letting this get?" The customer ended up leaving, and they left, and everything got taken care of eventually, not by me, by somebody else. But I go, "Well, did you see the way that guy talked to me? He said this about me, said that about me," and he goes, "Wait a minute." He goes, "You know what? Do you know that guy?" I said, "Well, of course not. I don't know that guy. He's just a customer walked in." He goes, "Do you think he knows you?" And I said, "Well, it's impossible for him to know me. It's the first time we've ever seen each other." He goes, "Well, then he wasn't really mad at you." And he pointed and kind of tapped me where the word radio phone was. That's who that guy is mad at. All you do is represent that. The guy doesn't know you. So you're letting him affect you in a way that is not, it doesn't make any sense. And it took a second, but it literally just blew my mind, because now that's how I would look at it. And I would even get to a point when a customer was super mad and just yelling, and boy, they will yell at you. You talk about no home skills. I mean, that there's a lot of that out there. But sometimes I would just tell them, I just let them keep going. Wouldn't even interrupt them because they need to get it off their chest. And then eventually I'd be like, I know you're not even mad at me. You don't know me, but you're mad at this, and that's okay. I'm okay with you being mad at them. But now that you've got all that off of your chest, let's move to resolution now, because that's what we're going to work on. And when you leave here, you can still hate whatever name I'm wearing on my shirt. I don't care, but you're not going to hate me. That's what I do know, because I'm going to serve you.
absolutely. Now, and I know you tell the story a lot, but you actually had one of the most craziest and one of the most dangerous situations happen because you did not use the proper customer service skills.
Absolutely, 100% correct. Radiophone got bought by a company called Alltel, and I was a manager of a store that was probably the busiest in the country. And it was like on the corner. If you're ever familiar with Metairie, it's on the corner of Causeway and Veterans. It is like just a madhouse of traffic. So
Oh, it still is today.
yeah, I was I was over that way yesterday. And this kid in my office, so it was an old gas station and mechanic shop, and the room was actually separated by the middle with, I don't know, like bathrooms, and my office was over here, big glass front, and we had a ton of people in there. And so I walked out to get somebody, because you had to sign in and wait your turn, and kind of like going to a doctor's office in a way. But the guy comes in. I'm out there getting a customer off of the sign in sheet. This guy walks in, young kid walks in. He goes, "Well, you going to help me now?" And I'm like, "No, no, you're going to sign in." And he goes, "Well, yo, you're going to help me now." And he kind of got in my face a little bit. And I said, "No, I'm not. Absolutely, I'm not. You're going to sign in just like everybody else." And he looked me in the face. He said, "If you don't help me now, I'm going to shoot this place up." And, I have this whole long speech I give, and I do this because, people sometimes say the good angel and the bad angel. I call them pride and false pride. It's a great story, but we don't have time for it today. But false pride resembles pride a whole lot, sounds alike, they look alike, they even walk and talk the same. Well, false pride stuck real big, got in my ear and said, "Well, do what you got to do." And so that's what came out of my mouth to that young man. And I said, "Do what you got to do." And he just kind of went, "All right." I watched him walk out the door, get in his car, turn on to Ridge Lake, roll his window down at the stop sign, because, it was a little, back in the day, you had to crank them down, and the service road. And I saw something come out of the window, and it was a gun. And he drove right past my store and shot up to 12, 15 bullets through the store. No one was hit. Amazingly, it was an absolute miracle. Absolute miracle. I always said the good Lord just said, "No, not today." But there were bullet holes through a window where I had one of my favorite people, the woman who became my wife, now ex-wife, but gave me the greatest gift in the world, my daughter. There was bullets that went right past her. Nobody was hit. And they ended up catching the guy. I think he's still in jail today. But at the end of the day, I had a level of respect and a sense of, man told me what he was going to do, and he did it. But more importantly, when I went back on my way home, dealing with the situation, the cops have left, and now your blood pressure starts to come down, your adrenaline starts to come down. The reality is, what would have been lost if I just said, "Well, what can we help you with?" What? Right? He was a young kid, 19, 20, 21 years old. There's no reason why I couldn't have treated him with the same respect that I treated the 87-year-old woman that walks in there, right? One thing I used to teach my people after this moment is that I don't care if they're 14 years old, 44 years old, 94 years old. Everybody likes to be treated with a level of respect. And so had I done that, that whole thing could have been avoided. And I have to own that. Like, I have to own my own piece of that mistake. So yeah, I mean, look, customer service, that's an extreme example. I'm glad I lived it. I'm glad nobody was hurt, obviously. But it taught me a lot. It taught me a whole lot. And I'm way more respectful to people who are quote unquote, out of control now.
All right. Now, before I get to their questions, I do want to briefly talk about, the years you spent as a corporate trainer with Sprint Nextel, also with the Audubon Nature Institute in New Orleans. And you've done a lot of corporate training with NAPA. And this is a field that needs good people. We need more
Oh,
women in it. We need more minorities in it. We need a lot of bilingual people in it. We have a lot of first generation Americans in our district, and corporate training could be a great way for them to use their bilingual skills. So
oh,
just talk
absolutely.
briefly about corporate training and why it's so important and why they might consider doing it.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you what, it's one of the greatest things I've ever done. When I made the jump over, matter of fact, that's the whole reason I went to work for Sprint, which is, of course, where you and I met many, many years ago. And it was as a corporate trainer. It's awesome because, one, you get to see most everybody coming in. The job that I had, and as a corporate trainer, I got to travel around the country. And look, I didn't travel before I got into that job, right? So the reality is that the company paid for my hotel, my rental car, my meals. I got to meet new people. I got to influence people. And I think that's really what my passion was being able to influence them in a way that was a positive way. I got to help them become better employees, which of course it's fun. Like, the greatest success I ever have is watching somebody that I've trained move up. But at the end of the day, that is going to all boil down to your ability to communicate. Because if you can't talk and you can't control a room, because look, Greg, you sat in some of the classes. Sometimes they get a little out of control. So you have to be able to control a room. You have to be able to communicate. If you're bilingual, holy moly, that you have an amazing opportunity to advance, and it definitely in a training world, a corporate world. And look, it's a dream job for people. If you don't mind standing in front of people and communicating with them, teaching them, I often say, I wonder why Greg went in this direction. He obviously has a passion for it, but he probably could make a whole lot of money in corporate America, teaching others. But he obviously has a passion for this with the way he does his teachings. But yeah, if you can communicate, you're bilingual. Look, and they're starving for talent in the training world. I often tell people I became a trainer because I hate trainers because they're just terrible. They're just terrible. So that industry is starving for people. And the reality is then you learn every aspect of every business, which then makes you more valuable. Look, I wouldn't be sitting in this seat right now making the money that I make, doing the things that I do, had I not done that and taken advantage of the opportunity to learn about every aspect of the job.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think it's interesting you went up with Napa, but COVID actually ended you had to lay off yourself there at Audubon Nature Institute, where you were the corporate trainer at, the place where you go to the New Orleans Zoo and the Audubon Aquarium and Insectarium. So,
Yeah.
literally everywhere is looking for corporate people. So that is a great field. And I think a lot of people don't know about it. And I think our young people should really consider it if that's something they might be interested in.
Absolutely. Look, when I saw that, I'll never forget, it's the first job I ever got without knowing somebody. And I was scrolling through NOLA.com open job positions, and it said Audubon Zoo trainer. And I'm like, I don't know how to train animals. What the heck do I know? I mean, I barely take care of the dog that lives at my house. But when you went in and looked at it, I never thought about it. I never thought, well, gee, you know what? There are 750 employees, 800 employees during peak season that they need to be trained on the rules and the regulations and how to do things. So it was a great match. And truth be told, I'd still be there today if it wasn't for COVID. But my life is better because I followed the path that was laid out for me.
There you go. Well, I do have some questions, and these are all really good. I'm not going to be able to get to all of them because some of them got like 5 questions on here. But this
Oh,
first one is
geez.
Kalia Bullock. She's in 10th grade, and she asked, I get nervous speaking, so how can I talk to someone without being nervous if I'm in an interview?
Well, first of all, thank you for that being a very honest question. And honestly, it's a very easy, but the most complicated thing to fix. And that is you just keep doing it. Honestly, recognize that everybody that sits in front of them is probably on some level of nervousness. It's not unique. I think I read something one day that said that the biggest fear that humans have is public speaking, and the second is death. So obviously, you'd be better off being the person in the casket. It's based on that logic, but honestly, the only way to overcome that fear, it is a two-step process. One, recognize that probably the person interviewing you might be a little bit nervous too, especially if they're starting out at this. But more importantly, is just do as many as you can and know that at first you're going to screw up. But every interviewing is a skill. It is a 100% a skill. And one of the things I offer people here is if they're interviewing for another position within the organization, or honestly, even any organization, I'll practice interviewing because you interview right now with me, then the next interview you're a little better at in the next interview. So honestly, just keep going out there, putting yourself in front of people and going through that process.
Absolutely. I like this one. This is Ikaria Chambers. She's in 10th grade, and she asked, have you ever looked at a cover letter and realized that when you were reading it, this was the perfect person for the job?
Yes, absolutely, I have. It was just so strongly written. They gave me just the right amount of, and look, it doesn't, it is literally, it should be no more than two paragraphs, right? One just telling me maybe a little bit about who you are, but they came across very positively. And then they highlighted a couple of their skill sets. And so I knew immediately, I didn't even look at their resume, to be honest with you. I did not even look at this person's resume. I simply called them and I asked them, when can you come in? Because I got a good feeling you're going to get this job.
I like this one. This is Isaiah Ray, 10th grade, one of our band members here. I'm sorry, she's in 10th grade, 11th grade. Okay, I can't get there. All my years run together. She's in 11th grade. But she asked, what are some things that you hate to see on a resume or hear in an interview?
Okay. Well, one, we'll start with the misspelled words. It's a big problem. Dates that don't make sense. You worked at McDonald's, Burger King, and Taco Bell all at the same time. No, you didn't. Um, Also, when it's all mixed up and I have to put the pieces together, like I have to go like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't line up. So make sure your resume, print a copy of your resume to make sure that it translates properly. So those are some very simple things. But if there is one thing I cannot stand when I talk to somebody is when they say to me, well, I'm a people person. Well,
Oh,
that's great. You're literally applying for a job, working on a counter, talking to people. I have to go on the assumption that you're a people person. So that is like my pet peeve. But I will tell you, it comes up. I'll actually grill deeper. If you tell me you're a people person, I'm going to ask you to define that for me. Tell me, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to you when you say you're a people person? And
wow.
if you freeze, you got no shot. But if you can
Wow.
explain to me what that means, if you say something to the effect of, well, I'm a people person because somebody walks into my door and I love when they say my door, right? Because now they're already taking ownership of it. And I love that. If you walk into my door and you're having a problem with something that I've sold you or a product of ours, I'm going to make sure that I get that resolved for you. That's what makes me a people person. Let me tell you something. You just moved to the head of line.
Wow. Well, I just got time for one more. This is Jasmine McBride. She's in 10th grade. And she asked, what are some things that makes a person stand out as soon as they walk in the door?
One, they're positive. They're look, I tell people all the time, I'm no hippie here, but I am looking for your energy. I am looking, do you sit up straight? Do you have a smile on your face, or do you look like you want to beat me up? I want that. I want that you walked into the room confidently. You can exude whether you're actually confident or not in the interview. To go back to that first question about nervousness, if you can exude it, if you can, I had an old driver's ed coach Panks used to tell me, Rainey, sometimes you got to fake it to make it. And he was right. And, he absolutely was right. There are times I walk into a room and I'm nervous. I know the person I'm interviewing is nervous. But if you don't make me think about how nervous you are, then I'm going to get past that. I'm going to see confidence and know that you have the ability to be a confident person. If you're confident, you can learn anything.
Absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time. And as always, we thank you so much for taking some time for us. I can't think of anybody better to teach these skills because it is something that can literally change their life. Because
It is.
in this, we're going to talk about how to manage the money, but you got to get the job to make the money first. And it's just so important. So as these kids get ready to transition out of high school into their next step, whether it's college, I know you didn't go straight to college or,
Yep.
community college or whatever. So, what can they do to be successful when they're applying for these jobs?
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you honestly is number one, when you're applying for a job, no, there's no job beneath you. That's the first thing. There's no job out there that is beneath you. Take every opportunity you have to learn because that is so important. Every job I took my first job as a manager at the age of 19 of a retail sports store, t-shirts, hats, team stuff, making $13,500 a year. That was my salary. That's now against the law. You can't do that. But I didn't take it for the salary. I took it because I was 19 years old and I could have a job as a manager. And I knew that would look well on my resume. And every job I ever took after that, I just progressed and I wanted the learning opportunity. I wasn't afraid for that. You can't be afraid of a new challenge and a new skill. And then because I don't want to run out of time, I will tell you too, is by all means, since I'm even going to talk about once you make the money, participate in whatever retirement program the company you're going to work for
Oh
has.
man, big
Man,
time.
I don't care if you're 17, if they, well, you can't do it at 17, but at 18 years old, I don't care if you put $1 a paycheck away. Holy moly, you could be, then you can retire. Then we can talk about the next phase of life, right? So please take advantage of that. Anything, any matching money, if they match 3%, you put 3%. That's all I got to say.
Oh, believe me, we're definitely going to talk about that later on this semester. Like, you're preaching to the choir on that one. But and then the last thing, if anybody's interested in working at NAPA, how can they apply to work at NAPA?
Yeah, look, it's honestly it's napa.com or you can email me directly because I got the stores and I now am responsible for Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. So
Wow.
you can email me directly and mention this gentleman here, your teacher, because that'll put you in the front of the line as well. Because if he's willing to make sure you get it to me, then I feel like he's vouching for you.
Love it. Well, again, my man, Kevin Rainey, Regional Vice President of NAPA Auto Parts, the NAPA know-how, all the way from Covington, Louisiana. We'll talk to you soon, my man.
All right, thank you.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.